Hey everyone, Ben here. In today's episode, I've got a special guest for you. We talk about life, music, jazz, and how all of that fits, or maybe doesn't fit, into the corporate world. So stay tuned.
Let's jam in the spirit of joyful togetherness. Every note we play is a step in our success. From the corporate climb to a soulful dive. In the rhythm of work, that's where we thrive. Oh, we're riffing, we're grooving, we're alive.
Hey, welcome to the show.
You're welcoming me. Hi.
I'm
Hello,
welcoming
Rijon.
you. I would have said your name, but you have two names on it. How is it? Is it Ryan? How do I pronounce that?
Okay, so the spelling, I'm kind of giving it away down there if you're watching this, but if you're not watching this and only listening, my name is pronounced is spelled Rijon. And you might wonder how that's pronounced. Not everybody does. What I do, I try to make it easy and try and open the space a little bit if we want to start there. I say, okay, I play a game. If you want to learn how to pronounce it, I'll tell you the rules and you can opt in or opt out. So you can have 3 guesses and I will not be offended by any guess you take. 2, you may ask 2 questions about how to pronounce the name. I'll give you a hint if you want it, or you can opt out and I will just resolve the tension and we can go right to it. So then I invite someone to the game and they do this, that, or the other. And inevitably, about 99 times out of 100, and I've done this quite a lot, it ends up in a smile, a laugh, an aha, or just kind of.
Okay.
It relaxes the tension so that a connection can happen. And that is very much in tune to how I wish to travel in the world and to be with people for the remainder of the time that I'm going to spend on this beautiful ball of mud.
Water. Mainly water.
I say the beautiful blue ball of dirt and water. So
yeah. Very beautiful.
It's a flying
dirt.
mud ball.
It's the best dirt we have. We have no better dirt.
And the dirt's going to be here long after we decide or don't decide to off ourselves with pollution or political nightmares.
So I'm about to ask you 2 questions, right? That was the rules. Okay. So, is that a French name?
It's not.
Is that a name from Is that name from India?
Asked India before, but no, it is not an Indian.
Okay, so now I have to try to pronounce it.
You got 3 guesses.
Okay. So I start with that is really tricky. So I start with the 3 guesses. So I start with the obvious, like American straightforward. It's pronounced Ryan.
And you are 100% correct. The fanfare happens, and you get to be in the top 5% of those who play the game. You are in the highest standard deviation there is.
Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. I think we should cut it here because it's not going to get any better.
Stop while you're ahead.
Yeah.
You win.
Yeah. No, I have to be honest with you. I first thought it's like Rijon because I was thinking about the French mustard out of the Dijon region. That's why I asked, is it French? But as you said, it's not. Then I was like, okay, I have 1 guess to go. So I was like, okay, maybe it's something I would never think about. Maybe because of India.
Well, I can give you the answer is that I have Norwegian heritage on my father's side. So Erickson, last name, pretty obviously Scandinavian. Norwegian was the influence. It is not a historical name. I am, as they say in Game of Thrones, I am first of my name. So it is from my father, who was an art professor for many years, decided he would bless me with a gift to every barista and substitute teacher in my future of a name that was virtually unpronounceable at first sight. So, yeah,
all right.
So it's a Norwegian influence, but invented by my father.
All right, you gave us some background information, but give us some foreground information as well. Who are you, Ryan?
Who is Ryan? Ryan is figuring out who Ryan is on a daily basis. Ryan is emerging.
What does
So
that mean?
what it means is that how it's, that meme where, how it started and how it's going,
Hmm.
kind of that thing. So how it started was I grew up in the American Midwest in Indiana. My father was art professor at Indiana State University. I went to school from a very young age at elementary, junior high, attached to the university. And at that very young, I say that because it's a very seminal experience for me. So at the very young age, I was around college professors. The college professors were teaching our elementary school classes. So, and one specific college professor was associate director of bands at the university, and she taught band at the school. And she decided with one class, her son's class, that she would teach the band members of that class how to play cornet in first grade. It's like 7 years old, and learn not only how to play the cornet, but also how to improvise jazz, just very simply at first. At a young age, I had no fear. It was developed, and I had no fear of improvisation and taking a chance, because we'd start with one note, then we go to two notes, then three, and then we go to what's called the blues scale. So it's like, I think there's 6 notes in the blues scale. God, I can't believe I don't remember all. I know what they are, but so jazz improvisation was very early for me, and that followed me through. I decided to go to college to study jazz, and which I did in my last year of college. I had met my now wife of 31 years in college, and I was right at that point where I was I'm gonna go to New York or Los Angeles or Nashville or something and be a professional musician, or I was gonna perform and record, do whatever it was, because I thought I was great, whether I was or not. But so that was the trajectory for me. And at that time, I met my wife and we got pregnant and lost the baby, and that put us in a position where either I could choose to try and live this life of the traveling musician and attempt to make it work with Debbie, my wife, or say, okay, music, I love you with all my heart, and I will continue to love the music, who you are, music, but I'm going to need to bring you inside for a while and let you live in my heart for as long as that happens, and choose to get married and have a kid and move into a large city, Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I have returned after a brief respite in Charlotte, North Carolina. Returned here and, was in Cincinnati back then, and 20 years in IT. From there, I think it was 20, yeah. So and so music got my heart, and then, corporate life happens. And I view the world of corporate IT, managed services, and then got on this huge project I loved, awesome. And I parted ways, former employer. This is a long story. I need to kind of cut it out. But be that as it may, I ended that 20-year IT journey with that one company, started another journey where it was more in innovation, design thinking, all this kind of. I had discovered Agile, what it was back then in 2014. There's a whole how it started and how it's going story now. A real interesting one. Kind of interesting. But anyway, so that happened. I was Agile, design thinking, innovation. I'm being this really different person, kind of who I was. I was liberated from the corporate structure, and then went back to corporate structure for a while, and then blam, I get cancer, and then go on this 5-year journey to heal from cancer. The way it happened, got cancer. I told the contracting company and the bank that had the contract, I told them I had cancer, said I was going to work. 5 days after the diagnosis, they fired me. So there's some lessons about the corporate world does not care about you. The corporate structures and the people who play the corporate game they're disincentivized to care about humanity and to build a workplace that is fit for humanity. So I got that message. I wanted to be independent, and I'm desiring to be independent ever since that time. I've had some ups and downs with it, and I've come now to the realization going back to the roots of being a musician and being a jazz musician, and that integrating the stance of a musician, this musicianship. What is it to be, leadership or musicianship? I believe that musicianship is much more of a humanistic, rich metaphor that leads to ways of being together. That is so much more loving, might I say loving, more so than the fearful, industrialized, mechanistic world that I was in. That, there's only so many days, so many hours that we have as people to do our work and to do what we love. So why not integrate that loving spirit into work in a way that is artistic and also connect as individuals when we play together? And in music, when you play, you're playing, man, and you're on it and you're doing it. And that's not about what play is a bad thing in the mechanistic world. Play is professionalism in the musician's world, and all the form. And we can talk about that a little bit if we want, but that's where I am now. Is bringing, writing a book and talking about the music of.
And you're jamming with people on LinkedIn.
Yes. The channel, my channel, podcast video. It's videos is Riffing with Ryan. So I invite people in to riff. Now, Benjamin, you have also done a very, very well received riff. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
See, you enjoyed it as well. I think. I feel.
I did. That's how we.
Otherwise, I would not be here in this moment. Yeah, so I riff with people. I want to bring the music and just host and give love to people and receive that, and might I say, make love together. Not in that way, but in this way, this loving spirit of liberating the human spirit in service of joyful togetherness, of making art together for people who care and being in reciprocity with them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I am and kind of who I am now. And I don't know how to necessarily explain it or say it. Just author, host, facilitator, lover of humanity.
I think that's pretty great. But I wonder, could you help me out with this one? The corporate world is full of processes, roles, numbers, spreadsheets. And I mean, the LinkedIn corporate world is full of fancy schmancy consultant, coach, or whatever, right? But it's still within this business, this economy that is driven by numbers, results, efficiency, processes. It's not very jazzy. I don't know how to say it differently, but I wouldn't consider this an environment where you would go into connect with people and connect with people in a way that you would connect when you would jam with someone in a session. So can you help me understand that a little bit better? What your thoughts on this are?
Well, this gets right into why I think the music of work is so important. Because there are so many different forms and different purposes for music, and the ways of listening, ways of playing, ways of listening, ways of preparing an environment for music to happen, that jazz is, while it is my all-time favorite type of music to play and to listen to, I mean, that's just me. It's a small group with super high skill and improvising in the moment, composing as you happen to a song form that's light, and doing it for people who really want to listen. They want to listen to the music and want to be in what we are giving as a small jazz group. And that's like 2, 3, 4, 6 at the most number of people can be in this kind of lightly structured jazz ensemble with a lighter control and a more intimate, kind of really strong control bond between people, at that smallest level. But 5 people is a hell of a lot different than 500,000 people. And 500,000 people with built in a pyramid, with the top of the pyramid needing to report out to the bosses of the shareholders and say, we're making money, we're growing, we're continuing to grow at all costs. At all costs. with no concern for what the impact of those costs are. So musically, what is that? Some would say it's an orchestra. Orchestras are beautiful forms. 150 or so folks with a conductor who is maybe a musical director, because you got to synchronize folks. A lot of folks, there has to be more control at 150. If it is going to be 150 people doing one performance in a concert hall with lots of people supporting them, and so the whole environment, the scene, the venue, the support, the players, the audience, all that stuff is this complex system of human emotion, the socio-technical system or socio-cultural system. But there has to be control for that performance to happen, because it is very large and there's high stakes. You're performing. People paid money to see you do this thing, and 100 people in sync together. So the score, the music on the stand, there's a defined repertoire, and you're playing the notes that are there with some dynamic changes, and kind of you're listening, but it's an interpretation exercise. It's not improvisation. There are some forms that have improvisation, but a large company is like an orchestra when it's healthy, a healthy company of that. Now, the kind of environments that we were talking about in pre-show, and that what you're alluding to here, are more like marching bands. Is that there's a drum major up front. You are following me. I am the leader. Bump, 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 bump. There's not a whole lot of room for interpretation, and everybody's, maybe you have sections, but you got people just blasting at the top of their lungs so they can be heard by, who cares, 80,000 fans in a college football, American football, that kind of thing, marching in a form, making letters on the field, and that's just, if you really try, you really care, you can make some art out of that. That form is not about the art. It's about supporting the commercial effort of the football teams who are playing, and with all the monetary incentives, And it's just,
I guess that's fine for most companies out there, right?
Well, when you're printing money hand over fist, and why change? Why change if you're supporting a game that gives you what you think you need and what you think you want? But when you get to the top of the top, you're climbing that corporate ladder to be at the top, so you can have the great house, the great car, the great vacations.
So you could play the drums.
Yeah. So you can do it, and so it's a game. That game of, hey, the game, we're in the marching band. We're controlled. We have a commander, and that commander exerts control. Because if you don't play that, and you don't walk in this place on this marching band field, you're out. You're persona non grata. We don't care. There's no grace. Very little grace there. I'm exaggerating, but that's how I view that. There are all sorts of, it's command and control, large organization in that way, different from an orchestra, marching band, which then you get to shared control and ultimate agency, and the willingness to open space for dissent and conflict, and have that conflict create close bonds that are much more in control, and you feel a responsibility to, in a business setting. Let's say we've got 5-6 folks who are delivering revenue, profit and loss, and we are doing that together, because the business analog to those two forms is I think it's very stark. And that's why I believe in this whole small group decentralization and that relationships. We can talk about that, but that's my riff based on your invitation to bring what the corporate industrial complex of whatever into.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me very much of Google when they started with the Gemini AI stuff. Google as an organization, huge, right? So many people working at Google. At some point, their revenue based out of their search engine and their supporting products they have was so big that they were accused of having a monopoly. So they needed to hire more people in order to drive margins down under a certain level where they could not be accused of running a monopoly because they weren't as efficient as a typical monopoly would be. So they kept hiring people to I know I'm accusing you. I have no
No,
evidence. I have no evidence of it. But if they would let go of some unprofitable products, the margin would put them into a place where you could easily argue for them having a monopoly. And that monopoly on the search engine and ad revenue that they get is holding them back from adopting a new technology like the AI, right? So they keep playing this marching band and support that song that team, that ad revenue that is being played, but unable to jam with all the AI people out there because it would corrupt their profit streams on their ad revenue. Because people would then not use their search engine, they would use their unmonetized AI agent that you could now ask, right?
Yeah.
So you have people playing on a marching band now needing to jam along with jazz artists. And they couldn't do it. The Gemini failed in the very first couple of attempts of putting out the same performance that OpenAI models did. So that just reminded me of that as a very, very good example of what you described.
Yeah, and there was a point in time where, it was Sergey and Larry.
Yeah.
And then there's employee number 3, 4, 5, and then it becomes, we need some more synchronization here. We need, maybe we're growing so fast. Oh my gosh, we need an adult in the room. Okay. Oh, who's this guy? Eric Schmidt. Oh, hey, build a pyramid so we can sell it. Do that and that. And then the towers build and the silos build. And that whole don't be evil bit kind of goes off by the wayside. And then we have revenue, ad revenue, algorithm, drive. And then you started by being this whole, 2 guys eating vegan food and water all the time and just being very healthy, exercising all the time. And then you end up in this place where you're all addicted to cheeseburgers and fries and bacon and ice cream. And if you live on bacon, ice cream, cheeseburgers, and chocolate for years upon years, you become addicted to that. And it's why would I want to buy broccoli seeds and grow for 3 months to try and be healthy and have, that doesn't taste as good as hamburgers and ice cream. I get so much pleasure from eating hamburgers and selling hamburgers to my shareholders, and so, and that's very interesting because, if I take that to food analogy, I love metaphor, obviously. Yeah, so OpenAI is kind of like this, I don't know how many people are there, but it's healthy fast food. It's like Chipotle. You're McDonald's and you're this huge corporate entity. We're small and cool. You can't be small and cool like us. And when you try, you fail, obviously. So, interesting place.
Have you read, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, the article by the Founders Mode article from Y Combinator?
Oh, Paul Graham?
Yeah, the Paul Graham article. I was thinking of the name, I couldn't get it. Paul Graham's article about Founder Mode.
I remember the Maker and Manager article from years ago, and the new Paul Graham article has been recommended to me, but I've not read it.
You should give it a try. It's really interesting. He refers to a talk from the founder of Airbnb. I need to look up the name. I'm so bad with names. Airbnb founder is Brian Chesky. Brian Chesky.
Yeah. Okay.
And
that's right.
Brian Chesky gave an interview at a Y Combinator event where he was referring to, so I started Airbnb and there were so many people coming to me and telling me I should do this, I should do that, and I should just hire the best people, right? And then give them all the information they need and just let them do their thing, right? Because they're the professionals. And you should look You should watch the interview
I,
before
I'm,
before
I'm,
leaving. But he's picking his nose. He's sneezing all the time. He has red eyes, and you can see that he's just riffing there. But he's killing it. He said that I hired the best people. I talked to my VCs. I got the best people from everywhere, and I gave them all the information, budget, and freedom they need to really do their job in the way that they think it should be done. And we failed. And
market failure. Airbnb is a market failure. Is that what he was saying?
no,
Failed in what way?
failed in the sense of he lost control, the profits went down, all the numbers, all the performance metrics that he used went down, and he kind of gave away the power of changing stuff because he was not in charge anymore, because he gave away that responsibility. And the way I see responsibility is that either you have it or you give it away, but it's not something that is like really shareable, so to say.
Disagree, but okay.
Yeah, we can get into that. And what I found quite interesting is that he said there's like a different mode. So either you're a manager, you go into that manager mode where you delegate people and you empower people and they just do their best job, right? You hire the best people, then you delegate stuff to them. Or you're in this founder mode, which is often seen as bad because it looks like micromanaging. It looks like you have your fingers everywhere. It looks like you're not respecting the professions and expertise of the people that you hire. But ultimately, it's a way of caring about that business because you're what he called biological parent of that company. And that is a huge difference in the way you treat that company and the way you feel responsibility, and also in the patience that you have when you see something bad happening to it or you think it's bad, and the power that you would intervene with. So he put up those two modes, the manager mode and the founders mode, right? And then he said something super interesting. So he was obviously using Coke. So we shouldn't put this on a too high up pedestal. But I found it so interesting that he said that it's often seen as either this or that. And one thing is good and one thing is bad. But ultimately, it's just like jamming being a founder versus processing being a manager and creating processes and a system. But being a founder, like being a manager, is something you can learn. You go to any business school, you get an MBA degree, you go to Harvard, you go to Yale, wherever, you get your degree, and then you try yourself and you become a manager. There are things you could know, you could learn, like theory of constraints, capacity planning, whatever. But being a founder is nothing you could learn. So once Paul Graham put out that article about founder mode, about jamming with the folks you work with, that you founded that company with, and just everybody's just picking up something and playing with it. People started on LinkedIn commenting, and well, Marty Kagan, I don't know if you know him, Silicon Valley Product Group, he was on how to coach founders mode. And then a training on getting into founders.
How to coach something that was just put into public like a day before.
Yeah, no, a week before.
That's total bullshit. If we can say, if you need to beep that out, that's fine. But that's ridiculous bullshit.
Yeah, I think so too. I was writing a comment about it, like founders mode, and then on the other side, on one side, like I totally wasted Mark Zuckerberg drunk party picture on one side of the meme, and the other side is me eating fondue, and I would say fondue mode, and I'd prefer that any day.
Fondue mode, yeah, man.
However, what I wanted to say is that people start trying to teach that, and I think it's like teaching someone, like a school for jazz, where you see the process step 1, 2, 3 of jamming in a jazz band. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, if that is even possible. I have no clue about music. I was forced to play the piano. I hated it. I took singing lessons. I hated it. But here I am asking that.
Gosh, there's so much there. So you mentioned I was forced to play the piano. No one
Yeah.
should be forced. No one
As
should
a
be
kid, I
forced.
was like, my
So
parents come from Eastern Europe. It's mandatory you have to play an
yeah,
instrument.
I am vehemently against force and mandates and that kind of stuff. There's a time there, and here I think goes into the music thing. There's a time for training when you don't know, you have no idea what an instrument, you don't know what music is, right? Music is this. To play music, you need to choose an instrument, learn what it is, how to play it, learn what the notes are. And you can go either self-taught, and learn the notes, play the notes so they sound good, one note at a time. I know this is the fingering, and then, or you learn the fingering and all this kind of stuff, this basic playing that and let's say elementary school, right? So or whatever, at a younger age, or you go from 0 to 1, right? The Peter Thiel thing, get 0 to 1. So you have to do a 0 to 1. It's like from no music to actually being able to make a sound that sounds good, and either go down the reading route where I can follow a process, a written process, and I can follow the notes. I can do a crescendo and decrescendo and start with pianissimo, go to fortissimo, or do accent to learn the language, right? And we talk about learning a spoken language, and how do you learn spoken language? How do you learn written language? And how do you string those letters and phonemes and phonics into words and say, I know Benjamin. Okay, this is a cat. I want to go to the bathroom. So these very young, incompetent, and that's not a bad word, so not proficient. So you develop skill. Okay, and this does come into jazz eventually. So to become a jazz musician, the requirement is to have, proficiency par excellence. So just you have to know all the notes, all the scales, or have this that the flow of the instrument is your hands know how to speak language. You have literacy, right? Not just ability to speak. You have consummate literacy. And so a founder, right? So you know your business, you know your product. You've been with this product for years. You know it top to bottom. You built it by yourself, maybe as an engineer. You've engineered this thing. I know it. I love it. Just like if you play guitar, you know it, you chose it, you wanted it, you loved it, you played. No one was forcing, John and Paul to play guitar and bass and write songs. That was not forced. I would imagine. But there's a level of knowledge.
Yeah.
Right. So
I would also say there is a level of relationship that developed over the time playing a certain instrument and hearing music, and there's a relationship to hearing that. And as a founder, I see it in a way that I think you described it in that way, putting you in a position there, but that you get in a relationship with your product and your market, right? And that is not something that you can learn or pick up. That's what I would say. That is not something you could go to school with and learn e-commerce for reptiles. Right? That is no course. There is no course for it, and there will never be a course for it.
Here's how you recognize opportunities that have never existed before, that didn't exist when you were in school, when you were isolated from the world, versus being founder in that, okay, so the skill I have, I wanted to build, built this thing because I wanted the skills and I saw the opportunity. Now, that doesn't mean that folks who go to business school don't have that, but I think that is almost disincentivized, has been in traditional business schools. Only now we have the entrepreneurship. We have accelerators and incubators within universities, but the traditional MBA, as I understand it, again, I'm not an MBA, never been an MBA, so someone can strike me down for that, but you learn from the book. You do the test just like you did the test in high school, and so I know how to do a strategy. You don't know how strategy, that there's a natural learning that comes from mastery, right? Because you become a master in let's say in this product. The product is my instrument. this product. And because I built this product, I become a master at how to build, how to sense a market. But now I need to do this I can't do it all by myself. I can't cook a meal for 60 people in my 3-star Michelin restaurant for that myself. I can't play a game of basketball 1-on-5 by myself, and I certainly can't play every part of a jazz trio with a level of mastery by myself. But when I want to play is holding a standard, and I think this is the difference, that a founder has a certain level of standards for excellence, and to have the expert there and to say, this is the standard. Are you agreeing to hold yourself to this standard? Because I'm going to hold you to this standard. I expect you to hold me to this standard. In person 3, we all hold each other to that standard. And that can work. And I think that can work in this small kind of 5-6 folks. So we share the responsibility. I can sell, you can sell. You can build, I can build, you can analyze, you can do marketing. You're great at accounting. Your instrument is the spreadsheet and the financials and the regulatory. Your sweet spot, your instrument is HR, compliance, and is organizational development. But we all know the tunes. We all know that. And if that's how these relationships get built, and that's how excellence happens, at that stage, then when I hear what you're talking about, founder mode, that's what I hear. Now, I don't hear the hero at the top of the pyramid yelling, "You all suck, and you need to get better, or I'm going to fire you."
That is
I'm
an
going to
extra.
fire 75%.
That comes as an extra. You could have that as well on top, but you don't have to. Like, you could have that, gosh, today is, I can't remember names day. Apple, drop me a name.
Steve Jobs?
Correct. That would be like Steve Jobs. Product genius. Strategy-wise, genius. Would I want to work with him? Of course. For, let's say, a month of an internship, maybe. But he was such a jerk to work with. He would micromanage, intervene, top-down pinpoint on problems, just cut through all organizational boundaries. That is really hard to work with. I think that you could get that kind of behavior on top, but it's not necessary.
Well, the story of Steve Jobs is certainly an interesting one, and I think it changed through the years. If you read the story of the original Mac, what he had to do to create the Mac, and the story I remember was from Andy Hertzfeld, who was one of the chief engineers on the Mac, and they were working all night long, but they all were these excellent experts, and Steve was holding them to a standard. Again, he was an arrogant prick, and he had the reality distortion field, but you're saying he had product genius, and he knew what the unarticulated needs were better than anybody. And when Apple when he got kicked out, John Scully took over, then it became this corporatized craziness that had market failure, they were at near death. And then he comes back and just wipes it out. There's 4 products. There's 4 product lines, and that's it. And then sometimes I think there's this fine line between what kind of control is that control that's going to be exerted, and what does the system need? If it's in complete and total chaos, it's unmanageable complexity, there has to be some kind of bringing back to some sense of information that you can build together and create mastery from. Yeah, it's nuanced. I know it's nuanced. That's some would disagree with me. Like, command and control like that is always bad. I think 99 times out of 100 it is bad. It's bad for the people. Nobody wants to be managed like that, especially
corporations don't care about people. So for the corporation,
Yeah, I don't care if you like your job. I care about making shareholder dollars. I care about growth. I care about the quarter. I don't care about 5 years from now. I'm not going to be here 5 years from now. I'm going to be golden parachuted. I'm going to be over there at Starbucks, or wherever. I'm not going to be here. So you can gripe about employee engagement and wellness and all this crap.
Still, there is a place, I think, in a corporation where you should care and where it's like a red flag if you don't, which would be innovation or dealing with complex issues. Like, let's say your job is sales and you're selling yachts, right? I think that would be a job that if you treat that you're a salesperson like crap, they wouldn't do a great job.
If you incentivize them and punish them for not receiving an incentive they didn't choose, why would they? And then this whole role of I'm only a salesperson. I don't need to know all the details of the yacht. I don't need to know that. All I need to know is how to get people to sign on the line that is dotted. That's it. And then if you're going to measure me like that, fine. I'll just do that. I don't give two craps about yachts or people who sail or what the beauty and love of yachting is like. Who cares?
Yeah, but if you give
like, I know, it's just that's the almighty dollar. Say this a lot. I don't know if it always lands, but at all costs, without apology or anything, profit at all costs, growth at all costs. Have you ever seen Akira, the animated movie Akira? One of the characters, Tetsuo, in this character, he becomes engrossed by power in this. And he becomes starts as this kid, and he becomes this giant, ugly, cancerous, awful monster, because it's unregulated. There's no sense of restraint. There's no sense of context. It's just, I'm gonna grow till I'm this giant thing, and then it's gonna be this tragic, awful loss and death. Who wants that?
I think you pointed something out there that I also talked about with Alex Smith in the episode, which is growth is a really big issue with companies, because you could run a super profitable, very small business, but once you take that sweet private equity or VC money, you need to grow because you need to hit that numbers and beat the market, right? And once you grow, you deviate from your core. Because if where you grow, if that was your core, you wouldn't have to grow into that space. You need to venture out and grow another product, grow into another market, grow into another industry. And then you always move away from your competencies, from your product knowledge, from your market knowledge. And that is always a super risky endeavor, right? And having that urgency to grow means that once you enter that market and it is not as profitable as your other markets, you're dragging down the overall profit margin. So you're always between like growing here, moving away from it, growing there, moving away from it, and always finding that sweet spot on having a high volume and high margin at all the time. So whatever it costs is just when I hear you, whatever it takes, whatever it costs at all costs, I'm thinking about having only that calculation in mind. Same with, let's say, Nokia. Okay, so Apple can get those high margins. Why don't we design a phone that is as shiny and as brilliant as Apple and get the same margins? Right? Didn't work. Tesla had huge margins on their Model 3, right? Why don't we, as Volkswagen, design an electric car that has also those huge margins? It was not their core. It was not what they know and what they can do. So they deviated because they needed to grow. So they saw this growing opportunity over there. and moved away from what they can do into something they can't, something they needed to grow into in order to get those numbers.
Well, I think Volkswagen versus Tesla, I think is a great, regardless of what you think of evil Elon or whatever.
Yeah, let's keep him out.
Yeah, but I think that the example of the market success of why Tesla was able to do what they did, and I know you've talked with Peter and Joe Justice too, so you have some information about that. The system that was designed for doing that work is fundamentally different than the system that has grown at Volkswagen. I'm not sure when Volkswagen started, but I'm guessing it had to be not long after Fred Taylor and Henry Ford, started the world. And so if you have an organization that's built in that way, incentivized with fear, and I think this is kind of goes into what you informed me about one particular company you've been involved with, is that if there's fear of, I'm not going to make my number, so I need to lie about this. And that will be, if you're building a vehicle in an environment of fear instead of an environment that's transparent and values safety and all those kinds of things, you're going to end up with what Volkswagen ended up with, is that their system of management, their system of how people relate to one another was not designed to create an innovative product like the Model 3.
Yeah. I think the Volkswagen story, I don't know if you know the Volkswagen story a little bit, but it is super interesting. It's Ferdinand Porsche, who worked at Mercedes-Benz Daimler at that time, proposed a vehicle that is small, affordable, and practical for everyday use. And at Daimler at that time, they said, no, those peasants won't need vehicles. They're never going to buy an automobile. So he moved away with his idea into a small garage in Italy. And then the war came. And let's just skip this part because there are like a million different stories within it. But then the Volkswagen factory in Wolfsburg was almost completely destroyed, and the Brits took over, and they had ownership over that Volkswagen corporation. But they didn't know how to use it to produce vehicles, right? They had some really bad production lines set up, quality issues, so they sold their shares back to the city of Hanover. So that city took over. And what they did is they came back to the Porsche family running that small shop in Italy saying, hey, do you still have that small concept of that small affordable car for everyone? We could really use mobility right now. Right? So they hired him back, and that was the Volkswagen Beetle. That became the Beetle. That's why it also looks a little bit like a Porsche if you look at it. If you flatten the Beetle a little bit and stretch it a little bit, it almost looks like a 911. Even by now, I think so, at least.
Yeah.
And that was super interesting that it got completely destroyed. People couldn't wrap their heads around it. And then they started with this DNA of having that small, affordable vehicle. And now they have like all sorts of vehicles in all the market, and they differentiate it across the globe and become one of the biggest players out there. But their profit margin is shrinking, and there are product lines that are selling with a loss. And speaking of product lines, one small fact that I find quite interesting. Did you know that the Porsche family got money per sale on each automobile, each Beetle, up to, I think, just a couple of years ago? It's not so long ago. They got a part of the sale for each Beetle.
Why they stopped selling the Beetle, probably.
Probably that. I think that really killed the margin on it.
The music of Volkswagen. A marching band, if there was there.
Yeah, a marching band that is really putting all their effort into becoming a jazz musician. But
that, I think, leads into Bayer. What's happening at Bayer with the distributed shared ownership model.
What is that? I don't know.
So Bayer, the pharmaceutical company is
Oh yeah,
undertaking
Bayer. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Bayer. No, it's in the me in America. I say Bayer, like Bayer aspirin, like that. Yeah. So there's a concerted effort to really be. Now again, I think there's some god awful stories from some incentivized person to denigrate the decentralized or distributed shared ownership model. But I mean, they're going towards this place, and almost like this open space beta and cell structure design stuff, that small groups federated who have their own profit and loss statements at each cell, and that kind of organization for changing market conditions. Because how many markets does Bayer serve, and how many sub-markets of those markets that are needed? Company that size, tons. And it's a different way of running the business. You can say managing, whatever, but there are parts of the business that are run according to a system of standards that are set. Who designs the standards? Well, the folks who are managers, top managers, are responsible. I think this also goes down to Deming, too, that the managers are responsible for designing the game. So they do the game design, and the 90% of the people who are doing the work, the individual contributors, because management, they are not contributors, right? Individual contributors doing the work in a federated fashion according to market dynamics, as opposed to fiat budgets and dictated targets from the leaders, the Führers on high.
I have a recording scheduled with a director transformational strategy from Bayer. Just 2 weeks from now. I wonder, what questions would you ask regarding the transformation they're going through?
How have the individuals with budgetary control and responsibilities, who are for decades incentivized by plan to actual and rewarded based on their ability to hit the numbers, how has their behavior changed? And what belief is now at bear in that cohort of folks who were managers and who are now likely taking a different part in the business? How have those folks responded to the change in worldview that is offered and distributed shared ownership? So that's one question I'd ask is how do you solve the messy middle, which is kind of the parlance that's out there. And I believe in the core of that people don't need or really deserve to be carrot and sticked into performance. That if the system of work is designed in such a way that people care about it and experience the joy of excellence and meeting the standards, that again, this is Douglas McGregor, Human Side of Enterprise, please read it, that this theory X belief about, these peasants aren't smart enough to do the work. So they need me, enlightened manager, to tell them what to do and how to do it. And even and they have to, in order to, so that they will do what I tell them to do, they must be incentivized with cash, because that's the only thing these idiots understand. It's such a evil, horrible worldview that has been taught and inculcated through the management educational complex, as opposed to this theory Y belief that every individual, human beings are infinitely capable, do not require this external motivation, that this intrinsic motivation is the default mode. Just like you being forced to play piano. If piano was the goal, if making music was the goal, that to treat you as if you're a theory X, as if your belief is theory X, is not going to get you making music and loving it.
Treating you as if my piano teacher always said, she used to say, so she was from Russia, what she used to say was, because I always said, I don't like it, it's not fun. And she said, learn with a Russian accent, right? She said, learning is no fun. Playing music is fun, but you cannot play.
Well, there's this sliver of truth in there. And the training, and this is a universal, the athletic training that do, to train how to be a great cook and to train how to be that the drills that you do to build it into your fingers and to build it in your ears, that it's not necessarily fun. But once you get to a certain level that you have more facility in your hands and in your muscular system, then I can play Chopin. Or Fur-Elise is not just this da 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 da. It is da 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 da, as Beethoven desired it to be, and it's a difference. And I think this goes back to the theme that we're talking about the whole way, is that this level of skill, it's not easy, but once you get to this level of skill, you can engage with those challenges. You can get to that mystical, magical state of flow where it's timeless, and you can get there together. And man, that's being in the Keith Jarrett trio. That's being in the upper echelons of jazz. And that, I think, that's founder mode times 1,000.
I have 2 more questions for you. Question 1. If people want to learn more about your work, maybe want to jam with you, maybe jump on a LinkedIn Riffing with Ryan session, where do people find you?
Best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with me. We'll do a direct message. If you connect with me, please give me some kind of context that you saw me on Stellar Work, and that will help me understand what you heard. Go to the YouTube channels, Riffing with Ryan, just youtube.com/Riffing with Ryan, Ryan, Rijon.
Check out the show notes. I will put the links below.
I am awful at show notes, so I need to take some lessons from you, Benjamin. The discipline, the skill, build some skill in show notes. But yeah, Riffing with Ryan on YouTube, me on LinkedIn, Rijon. I'm like the only one out there. If you see me, if it's got purple, it's got a musical note in front of it, I'm not hard to find on LinkedIn. So my website's kind of under construction. Music of Work is going to be the book.
So it's www.kindaunderconstruction.
The blog is musicofwork.substack.com, but there's not a whole lot there yet. That's the project in progress.
All right. Last question. So we've been talking about music a little bit on this podcast, and I have this small music project going on alongside with the podcast where I take the transcript of each show, put it into an AI that gives me a song text that I put into another AI that makes me a song. I wouldn't consider myself a musician by that point, but it's fun. It's the most fun part of the post-production. However, you are now free to pick a genre and making my life a little bit more exciting, maybe a little bit harder, by picking a genre that I could use for our song for this episode.
He's jazz fusion.
And East Jazz Fusion it is. Ryan, thank you so much for joining in on the show. It was a pleasure to meet you, to talk to you, and I hope you will come back and we do another episode together.
Let us continue the jam in the spirit of joyful togetherness.
All right. And now, let's go. Thanks for making it to the very end of today's episode. If you'd like to learn how to jam along, just open up the show notes and get in touch with Ryan. You won't be disappointed. And if you like today's content, make sure to leave me a review or write about it on LinkedIn. As this episode was a little different than the others before, I'm especially curious about your thoughts. But enough of the talking about music, let's press play.
Welcome to the show where we vibe and we flow. Rijon Ryan's name, got a rhythm now you know. A game we play with letters, a smile it always brings. Pronounce it right, feel the laughter as it sings. On this blue ball of mud, we spin, we collide. But it's the music of life where we truly reside. Connections, improvisation, in every single beat. Life's a jazz fusion where heart and soul meet. Let's jam in the spirit of joyful togetherness. Every note we play is a step in our success. From the corporate climb to a soulful dive. In the rhythm of work, that's where we thrive. Oh, we're riffing, we're grooving, we're alive. Ryan's roots in the middle, Midwest, jazz was his guide. Improvisation young with no fear to hide. From the cornet to Italy, a journey he made. But the music of life never truly fades. Innovation in motion, not numbers on a page. A cosmic symphony, let's break from the cage. No marching bands, no rigid control. Just a free-flowing groove, that's how we roll. Let's jam in the spirit of joyful togetherness. Every note we play is a step in our success. From the corporate climb to a soulful dive. In the rhythm of work, that's where we thrive. Oh, we're riffing, we're grooving, we're alive. In a world of numbers, they don't see the tune, but we're jamming like stars, shining under the moon. Founders with vision, managers in time, it's all part of the dance in life's endless climb. Let's jam in the spirit of joyful togetherness. Every note we play is a step in our success. From the corporate climb to a soulful dive. In the rhythm of work, that's where we thrive. Oh, we're riffing, we're grooving, we're alive. In the space of connection, where the melodies bloom, we're all part of the song, let's dance in the room. Together we rise, with love in our heart. The music of work, it's a soulful art.